am going to have a meeting with Ugandan President Mr. Yoweri Museveni and ask him why he is not retiring. He has been president for a long time.
Okay, sahlan wa sahlan mtazamaji mpendwa, na shukrani kubwa na za dhati sana kwa kusimama nami na hata kujiunga nami. Bado tuko kwenye taarifa ama uchambuzi kuhusu uchaguzi uliofanyika kule nchini Uganda, na kwa hakika nataka niwaeleze kwamba mambo yanazidi kuchacha na kushinda unga, kwa sababu mambo yanamwendea segemnege kwa rais aliyeteuliwa ambaye ni Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. So Ibrahim Traore na viongozi wengine watoa warning kwa Museveni kwamba hicho kiti hakustahili kukimiliki na apeane kwa mstahiki wa hicho kiti. So angalia hii video kisha nitakuja kwa uchambuzi rasmi.
My brothers and sisters, I greet you today with a heavy heart, because what I am about to share with you is something that no African leader should ever have to witness in this modern age. Bobi Wine has been arrested. Yes, you heard me correctly. The military has taken him from his own home. And this is something that should concern every single person who believes in freedom and democracy across our beloved continent. My brothers and sisters, when the news reached me about what happened to our brother Bobi Wine in Uganda, I could not believe it at first. But then the evidence started coming. The videos, the statements, the testimonies, and I realized that we are watching history repeat itself in the worst possible way. This is why I must speak today. I must speak because silence in the face of injustice makes us accomplices to that injustice. Let me tell you exactly what has transpired in Uganda. Let me give you the details so that you can understand the gravity of what is happening. The opposition leader Bobi Wine, the man who has been fighting for the rights of Ugandan people, the man who has been standing up against oppression, he has been forcibly removed from his residence. And the way they did it, my brothers and sisters, this was not an arrest. No. This was an abduction. This was a kidnapping, carried out by state forces. The information that we have received, and this comes from the NUP members themselves, the members of Bobi Wine's party, they are the ones who broke this news to the world. According to the statement that has been shared widely on social media platforms, especially on X, the security operatives who were deployed at Bobi Wine's residence in Majer, they did something very shocking. They cut off the electricity supply to his home. Think about that for a moment. Why would you cut the electricity? It is simple. They wanted to operate in darkness. They wanted to hide what they were doing from the eyes of the world. But that is not all they did. After cutting the power, these security forces proceeded to destroy the electric fence that was protecting the perimeter of Bobi Wine's compound. They destroyed it completely. And you know what else they did? They violently assaulted the private security guards who were stationed there. These guards, they had committed no offense. They were simply doing their job, protecting the home where they work. But they were beaten, they were assaulted, just for being there. Now there are videos that have been circulating online. If you go and check on your social media, you will see a video showing a helicopter hovering in the area. This helicopter, my brothers and sisters, people believe it is the one that was used to carry Bobi Wine away. An army helicopter landing in a civilian's compound to take him to an unknown destination. Can you imagine this? In which democratic country does this happen? Even before this abduction took place, there was already heavy surveillance on Bobi Wine. There was a drone, yes, a military drone, that was constantly flying above his residence. This drone has been there since Bobi Wine came back from the campaign trail. Every day, every night. This drone was watching him, monitoring his movements, tracking everything he does. This is the kind of intimidation that our brother has been facing. Why is the military doing this? The answer is very clear, my brothers and sisters. Bobi Wine has been speaking the truth. He has been telling the people that the results which are being announced by the electoral body are not legitimate. According to Bobi Wine, these results are not the correct results. He has been saying that the results are doctored, that they have been manipulated. And this message, this truth that he has been speaking, this is what has angered those in power. This is why the military decided to move in and remove him from his home. There is something else I must tell you. Reports are saying that 10 people have died. 10 lives have been lost during this post-election period. These developments are happening at the same time that the electoral body is still compiling results and sharing them bit by bit. The Electoral Commission had announced that on the 17th of January 2026 they would unveil the president based on the results that would have been tabulated. But now, with Bobi Wine in custody, what kind of announcement are we expecting? Let me read to you what the NUP statement says about this matter. They are calling this an abduction, and I agree with them completely. The manner in which Bobi Wine was taken from his home, this cannot be called an arrest. The statement says that an army helicopter landed in Bobi Wine's compound and forcibly took him away to an unknown destination. The regime's security operatives who were deployed at his residence deliberately cut off the electricity supply to the home and destroyed the electric fence along the perimeter. The private security guards were fatally assaulted despite having committed no offense. This development, my brothers and sisters, it comes amid a very tense post-election environment in Uganda. And you know what is interesting? President Museveni, he is playing it cool. He is playing his cards very well. He is acting like the Mr. Cool guy. You cannot even pin anything on him directly because he is clever. He is not responding to these issues himself. Why? Because the Chief of Defense Forces, the CDF, this is his son. His own son is the one calling the shots here. The command structure of the military, you understand. The CDF is the one who is heading it. And this is where the problem lies. There is no way that the CDF is going to allow Bobi Wine to win this election. Why? Because if Bobi Wine wins, it means that the CDF will not be able to succeed his father. Think about it. His father is currently the President of the Republic of Uganda, though technically he is now a presidential candidate because of the elections. Uganda in this transition period doesn't have an official president, but of course Museveni still holds the powers. He is the one who is supposed to hand over power to whoever wins. But if Bobi Wine wins, what happens to the plan for the son to take over? This is why the military has moved with such speed to arrest Bobi Wine. When I look at what is happening in Uganda, I see a pattern. I see a strategy. Museveni thinks he is being smart. Let me give you an example from our neighborhood. Look at what happened in Tanzania. In Tanzania, the main threat to Samia Suluhu was the opposition leader Tundu Lissu. So what did they do? They took Tundu Lissu and put some trumped-up charges on him. Now he is still in prison, battling with that case. But Museveni, he decided to do things differently. He allowed Bobi Wine to campaign. He let him move around, but he tried to curtail Bobi Wine's movements through military deployment. He surrounded him with security. He monitored him with drones. He intimidated him at every turn. And now, while the results are still trickling in, while they are still being tabulated, Bobi Wine has been abducted. Here is what concerns me the most. My brothers and sisters, the information we are receiving suggests that Bobi Wine will be kept in custody until the electoral chairman announces the winner. Now think about this very carefully. If the military is taking Bobi Wine into custody before the results are announced, and then let's say by some chance Bobi Wine wins, what is going to happen? They have already taken him. They have already put him in detention. Will they release him to become president? Do you think they will do that? This is a very, very concerning situation. It is as if the military knows very well that Bobi Wine is not going to be announced as the winner. They have already made sure of that. They would rather abduct him, arrest him, put him in some unknown destination, because at the end of the day, according to their plan, he is not going to be the president anyway. But my brothers and sisters, what if Bobi Wine actually wins? What if the will of the people is so strong that even with all the manipulation, even with all the rigging, Bobi Wine still emerges as the winner? If Bobi Wine wins and they are keeping him in custody, it means that the military will have indirectly initiated a coup. Think about it. The people vote for Bobi Wine. He wins. But the military refuses to release him. They refuse to let him take power. And then they install whoever they want as president. Is that not a coup? Is that not a military takeover? This is why I, Ibrahim Traore, I am speaking today. I am calling on President Museveni to release Bobi Wine immediately. Release him now. Release him without any conditions. The people of Uganda have spoken. They have gone to the polls. They have cast their votes. You cannot arrest the leader that they have chosen and then claim that you are running a democracy. My brothers and sisters, we in Africa, we have suffered too much under dictatorships. We have seen too many leaders who refuse to leave power. We have watched as our fathers and grandfathers fought for independence, only for us to replace colonial masters with African dictators who are even worse. How long are we going to continue like this? How long are we going to accept that our leaders can use the military to silence opposition voices? I want to speak directly to President Museveni now. Mr. President, you have been in power for many years. You have had your time to lead Uganda. The young people of Uganda, they are asking for change. They are not saying that you are a bad person. They are not saying that you did not contribute to Uganda. But they are saying that it is time for a new generation to take over. Why are you afraid of that? Why are you using the military to hold on to power? Release Bobi Wine immediately. Let him go back to his home. Let him be with his family. If you believe that you have won this election fairly, then you have nothing to fear from Bobi Wine. Let him speak. Let him contest the results through the proper legal channels if he wants to. But you cannot keep him in detention. You cannot hide him in some unknown location. The eyes of the world are watching Uganda right now. The eyes of Africa are watching. We are all seeing what is happening. And I want to tell you, Mr. President, that history will judge you based on what you do in these coming days. Will you be remembered as a leader who respected democracy? Or will you be remembered as someone who used military force to cling to power? I also want to speak to the military leadership in Uganda, especially to the Chief of Defense Forces. You are a soldier. You took an oath to protect the Constitution of Uganda. You took an oath to protect the people of Uganda. You did not take an oath to protect one family's grip on power. The military should be neutral. The military should not be taking sides in political matters. When you send a helicopter to abduct an opposition leader, you are not serving Uganda. You are not serving the people. You are serving the interests of a few individuals who want to maintain power at any cost. Is this what you want your legacy to be? Is this what you want history to say about you? My brothers and sisters, I know that some people will say that I should not be speaking about the internal affairs of another country. They will say that I am interfering. But I say to them, we are all Africans. What happens in Uganda affects all of us. When democracy is under attack in one African country, it threatens democracy everywhere on our continent. This is not about me wanting to interfere in Uganda's affairs. This is about me standing up for what is right. This is about me using my voice to speak for those who have been silenced. Bobi Wine cannot speak right now because he is in detention. His supporters are afraid to speak because they might be arrested too. So I will speak for them. The people of Uganda deserve better than this. They deserve to have their votes counted fairly. They deserve to have their chosen leaders take office. They deserve to live in a country where they can express their political opinions without fear of military helicopters landing in their compounds. I have seen with my own eyes what happens when leaders refuse to listen to their people. I have seen the anger that builds up. I have seen how societies can explode when people feel that they have no other way to bring about change. Mr. President Museveni, do not push the people of Uganda to that point. Do not push them to desperation. Release Bobi Wine now. Open up the democratic space. If you have won this election fairly, then prove it. Allow international observers to verify the results. Allow transparency in the counting process. Allow opposition parties to present their evidence if they believe there has been fraud. This is how democracy works. To the people of Uganda, I want to say to you, do not lose hope. I know that what is happening now is very discouraging. I know that it feels like your voices do not matter. But I want you to know that the world is watching. Africa is watching. We see you, we hear you. We stand with you in your struggle for democracy and freedom. Continue to demand your rights peacefully. Continue to speak the truth. Continue to support your leaders who are fighting for change. But do it peacefully. Do not give those who want to maintain power an excuse to use more violence against you. My brothers and sisters across Africa, this situation in Uganda should be a lesson to all of us. We must stand together against any form of dictatorship on our continent. We must support each other in our struggles for democracy. When we see injustice happening in one country, we cannot just look away and say it is not our problem. The Africa that we want to build, the Africa that our young people deserve, it is an Africa where democracy is respected. It is an Africa where leaders understand that power belongs to the people, not to individuals or families. It is an Africa where the military serves the constitution and the people, not politicians. I am calling on the African Union. I am calling on ECOWAS. I am calling on all regional bodies. I am calling on all African leaders who believe in democracy. Let us speak with one voice. Let us tell President Museveni that what is happening in Uganda is not acceptable. Let us demand the immediate release of Bobi Wine. The time for silence is over. The time for looking the other way is over. We must stand up for what is right, even when it is difficult. We must defend democracy, even when it is inconvenient. Because if we do not defend democracy in Uganda today, tomorrow it might be our own countries facing the same situation. I want to end by saying this directly to President Museveni one more time. Mr. President, release Bobi Wine immediately. You have nothing to gain by keeping him in detention. You have everything to lose. Your legacy, your place in history, the future of Uganda, all of this is at stake. Do the right thing. Show the world that you respect democracy. Show the people of Uganda that you respect their will. Release Bobi Wine now and let the democratic process take its course. This is not just about one man. This is about the future of Uganda. This is about the future of democracy in Africa. My brothers and sisters, I thank you for listening to me today. I know I have spoken for long, but this matter is too important to be brief about. The situation in Uganda requires all of us to pay attention. It requires all of us to speak up. It requires all of us to demand better for our African brothers and sisters. Let us continue to pray for Uganda. Let us continue to stand with the people of Uganda in their struggle for democracy. And let us continue to demand the immediate and unconditional release of Bobi Wine. Thank you, and may God bless Africa.
I am watching Uganda today not with surprise but with clarity. The election has ended. Yoweri Museveni has been declared the winner again. Another vote, another confirmation, another chapter added to a long story Africa already knows. This is not about Uganda alone. This is about repetition. Across our continent, elections are held, results are announced, and power remains exactly where it was before the ballots were printed. The process looks democratic, the outcome feels permanent, and the youth are told to wait again for the next cycle. When I look at Uganda's election, I do not see chaos, I see structure. I see a system that has learned how to survive pressure by absorbing it. Internet shutdowns, state machinery, familiar opposition struggles, familiar international silence. Many will ask, why speak now? Because patterns are dangerous when we stop naming them. In Burkina Faso, our path did not begin with approval. It began with refusal. Refusal to accept that time alone creates legitimacy. Refusal to believe that stability without sovereignty is progress. Uganda's election did not shock Africa. What should shock us is how normal this has become. Today is not about judging Ugandans. It is about questioning a political model that keeps repeating itself while Africa's future waits outside the door. When leaders win again and again, the world calls it experience. Inside Africa, many are told it is stability. But I have learned that continuity can become a shelter where deeper problems hide, untouched and unchallenged. Uganda's election followed a familiar script: a long-serving president, an opposition that mobilized youth energy, a state that controlled the tempo of the process. The result was announced and Africa nodded, because it has seen this movie before. What matters is not whether ballots were cast, but whether power was ever truly at risk. Across the continent, electoral systems have grown sophisticated. They are no longer crude, they are managed, institutions exist, courts function, observers arrive, statements are released. But behind this structure, the same question remains unanswered: can leadership change without permission from the very system it threatens? This is where the pattern becomes clear. When a leader remains in power for decades, governance shifts from serving the people to maintaining balance between external partners, security forces, and political survival. Development becomes measured not by transformation, but by avoidance of collapse. Youth unemployment remains high, resource extraction continues, dependency is managed, not broken. I do not say this to dismiss elections, I say it to expose the limits of elections when they operate inside inherited frameworks. Voting inside a closed system does not open the system, it reinforces it. Uganda is not unique, it is recognizable. From Central Africa to East Africa, long rule has been normalized through procedure. The people vote, but the structure decides how far that vote can travel. In Burkina Faso, we reached a moment where waiting for rotation inside that structure was no longer an option. Insecurity was expanding, sovereignty was shrinking, our future was being negotiated without us. So when I look at Uganda today, I do not see failure. I see a warning, a reminder that continuity, when unexamined, slowly replaces accountability. And when accountability fades, legitimacy becomes a performance, not a relationship. This is the pattern I am reacting to. Not a man, not a country, a system that has learned how to repeat itself while calling it progress. Every election season across Africa carries the same image. Young people line the streets, phones raised, music loud, hope visible. They campaign, they volunteer, they defend their vote with passion, and then, when results are announced, that energy has nowhere to go. This is not because African youth lack numbers, they are the majority. In many countries, more than 60% of the population is under 30. This is not because they lack awareness, they are more informed, more connected, and more politically conscious than any generation before them. The problem is structural. The door they are knocking on was not designed to open. In Uganda, as in many states with long-serving leadership, youth participation is encouraged only up to a point. Mobilize, but do not disrupt. Vote, but do not threaten continuity. Protest, but within boundaries defined by the same power you are challenging. The system absorbs youthful pressure without transferring real authority. This creates a dangerous contradiction. Young people are asked to believe in democratic rituals while being excluded from democratic outcomes. Over time, this gap breeds frustration. First, it becomes apathy, then anger, then rupture. I have watched this pattern repeat across borders. Youth movements rise around charismatic opposition figures, but those figures are constrained by institutions shaped long before they arrived. Even when elections are competitive, the cost of truly winning becomes so high that the system protects itself before it allows renewal. This is why some leaders fear youth more than foreign critics. Youth do not negotiate in old language. They do not owe loyalty to Cold War alliances or donor frameworks. They measure legitimacy by results, not history. In Burkina Faso, the youth did not wait because waiting had already cost too much. Insecurity expanded while patience was preached. Resources left the ground while hope was exported in speeches. The system asked for more time, the people ran out of it. Uganda's election reminds Africa of this unresolved tension. A young population living under political arrangements built for another era. Elections offer expression but not transfer, participation but not power. This imbalance cannot hold forever. History shows us that when generations are locked out long enough, they stop asking for keys and start questioning the door itself. That is why today's elections must be read carefully, not for who won, but for who is still waiting. When elections end in Africa, the fastest reactions rarely come from the streets. They come from abroad. Carefully worded statements, measured congratulations, calls for calm, support for institutions. The language is consistent even when the outcomes are predictable. This is where the pattern deepens. International partners say they support democracy, but in practice they prioritize reliability. They look for governments that keep borders predictable, security cooperation intact, and economic agreements uninterrupted. Long-serving leaders understand this logic well. They present themselves as anchors in uncertain regions. In return, pressure softens. Uganda has played this role for years. A strategic security partner, a contributor to regional military operations, a stable ally in a volatile neighborhood. When elections arrive, these relationships do not disappear. They shape how far criticism goes and where it stops. This is not unique to Uganda. Across Africa, leaders who align with external security and economic interests are granted tolerance. Elections are observed, not challenged. Concerns are noted, not enforced. The system protects continuity while maintaining the appearance of democratic endorsement. This creates a quiet contradiction. African governments are judged less by how accountable they are to their people and more by how dependable they are to external partners. Stability becomes a currency. Longevity becomes reassurance. For young Africans watching, this reality is impossible to ignore. They hear speeches about democracy while seeing the same leaders reinforced year after year. They are told change is possible, but only within limits already agreed upon elsewhere. In Burkina Faso, we confronted this contradiction directly. We saw that dependency was being stabilized, not resolved. Security partnerships expanded while insecurity worsened. Aid arrived while sovereignty shrank. The language of reform was used to delay real decisions. When I speak about Uganda's election today, this is what I am reacting to. Not a single result, but an international environment that rewards permanence and calls it order. Africa must ask itself an uncomfortable question. If elections change nothing fundamental and international pressure protects continuity, where does accountability truly live? This question is not dangerous. Avoiding it is. Because when people realize that legitimacy is being negotiated above their heads, faith in systems collapses, and when faith collapses, politics moves out of conference rooms and back into the streets. That is not a threat, it is history. Many in the world see military interventions in Africa and call them anomalies. They speak of coups as exceptions, disruptions, or failures. I do not see them that way. I see them as inevitable consequences of a pattern where continuity is preserved at the cost of accountability. When political structures repeatedly absorb pressure without delivering meaningful change, a vacuum forms. It is not a vacuum of leadership, but a vacuum of legitimacy. People no longer feel their votes matter, their voices are heard, or their institutions protect them. In such conditions, force becomes a language to express the frustration of generations waiting at the door. Burkina Faso's path is often misinterpreted abroad. Observers see military action and cry instability. What they miss is the underlying cause, a system where elections and procedures failed to deliver results for the people, where dependency was normalized and where sovereignty was gradually eroded. Intervention became a necessity, not a whim. Uganda today fits into the same narrative of repetition. Young people mobilized, voices raised, hopes high, yet the structure remained impermeable. No external criticism, no internal challenge could shift the trajectory. The pattern continues and its rhythm is recognizable across the continent. frustration, containment, superficial legitimacy, and eventual rupture elsewhere. This is not to glorify force or dismiss peaceful politics. It is to recognize that systems matter more than ceremonies. When legitimacy is performance, patience wears thin. When accountability is optional, youth begin to question every channel that was supposed to empower them. If Africa's future depends solely on elections designed to protect continuity, then the continent risks waiting for centuries for change that will never arrive naturally. And those waiting generations will eventually redefine the rules themselves, whether the world approves or not. Today, as I observe Uganda's election, I do not celebrate or condemn. I analyze. I see the pattern. And I speak because recognizing patterns is the first step to breaking them. Africa's hope does not live in statements, reports, or procedural applause. It lives in its people. It lives in the youth who refuse to accept repetition as destiny. It lives in those who watch the cycle unfold and ask, why does nothing change? Across the continent, youth are no longer passive observers. They are connected, informed, and aware that the old frameworks serve continuity more than progress. They see through controlled elections, carefully timed reforms, and temporary concessions, and they ask, what can we do differently? The diaspora is part of this force as well. Those living abroad carry knowledge, experience, and perspective, and they maintain a voice that cannot be silenced by national borders. They pressure institutions, amplify stories, and support movements that challenge stagnation. When combined with the energy on the ground, diaspora networks become a multiplier for legitimacy, strategy, and accountability. In Burkina Faso, we chose a path that directly confronted the limits of the system. We acted not out of ambition, but out of necessity, because waiting for permission to act had already cost lives, sovereignty, and opportunity. Change was urgent, and delay was dangerous. Uganda's election is a reminder. Elections alone cannot create change. Structures that protect long rule will always find a way to absorb pressure. Youth energy without channels for power, diaspora insight without influence, and activism without strategy can be powerful, but also constrained. This is why Africa must explore alternative models for legitimacy. Leadership is not granted solely through ballots. It is earned through action, vision, and alignment with the people's lived realities. We must rethink how accountability, trust, and sovereignty are cultivated, not only within borders, but across the continent as a whole. Patterns exist. Systems entrench themselves. But where there is clarity, courage, and collective resolve, these patterns can be challenged, and new possibilities emerge. Today, Uganda's election is another lesson in that ongoing struggle. Africa cannot afford to be comfortable with repetition. The same faces, the same outcomes, the same cycles repeated under the banner of democracy may look stable, but stability without sovereignty is not progress. When I see Uganda today, I see a system perfected at repeating itself, absorbing pressure while projecting legitimacy. And I cannot remain silent. The lesson is clear. Waiting for change to trickle down through familiar structures will never be enough. Power will always protect itself. Long-serving leaders, entrenched institutions, and international partnerships create a framework where disruption is discouraged and continuity rewarded. Elections become rituals, not instruments of transformation. But Africa is not powerless. Every time the youth rise, every time the diaspora voices dissent, and every time a leadership model chooses principle over approval, the narrative shifts. Change is not granted, it is claimed. And it begins with recognizing the patterns that bind us. Burkina Faso's experience shows that refusing to accept an imposed status quo is not chaos, it is courage. It is a declaration that sovereignty, accountability, and dignity cannot be outsourced or postponed. It is a reminder that leadership is defined not by tenure or recognition, but by alignment with the people and the courage to act when action is required. Uganda's election is not the end of the story. It is a mirror, a reflection of what Africa has tolerated, and a prompt to ask what kind of continent we want to be. Are we waiting for continuity, or are we demanding transformation? Are we accepting appearances, or are we claiming reality? I speak not to condemn, but to challenge, to name patterns, to inspire clarity, to call Africa to recognize that legitimacy is not inherited, it is earned. And when earned through courage, principle, and vision, it cannot be contained by elections, boundaries, or entrenched systems. The future of Africa will be written by those who refuse to follow repetition, and today the mirror has been held up once again. As I step back from today's events in Uganda, I am reminded that Africa's challenges are not born overnight. They are cultivated over decades of systems designed to preserve themselves while the people wait. Elections may come and go, leaders may change in name, but patterns endure. Recognizing these patterns is not pessimism, it is preparation. It is clarity about what must be addressed if the continent is to realize its potential. The true work of leadership is not in celebrating the predictable or managing appearances. It is in confronting structures that hinder progress, in listening to the voices long silenced, and in forging legitimacy that comes from the people, not permission. The youth, the diaspora, and every African who refuses complacency are the lifeblood of this change. They are the ones who will challenge repetition, question authority, and demand accountability where it has been absent. Uganda's election today is more than a result. It is a reflection, a warning, and an opportunity. It tells us that continuity alone is not victory, and that courage, vision, and action define true leadership. Africa must learn to read its own patterns, to recognize where legitimacy is performance, and to act when the system fails the people. Because the future will belong not to those who wait, but to those who dare to reshape it.
Hope umetazama hiyo video na ni nini hasa kinaweza kuzibu taifa jirani ya nchi ya Uganda. Taifa ya jirani ya nchi ya Uganda imekuwa na uchaguzi ambao umefanyika kwa siku 3 ama siku 4 ambazo zimepita, na tumeona ya kwamba kiongozi aliyechaguliwa ama aliyejichagua ni kiongozi ambaye amekuwa kwa miaka takriban 43, sio mwingine bali ni Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Na Yoweri Kaguta Museveni aliteuliwa na kufuatiwa kwa karibu sana na aliyekuwa kiongozi wa upinzani kwa jina la utani Bobi Wine, ambaye yeye ndiye aliyekuwa mtu wa pili kwa kinyang'anyiro cha uchaguzi nchini Uganda. Lakini mambo yamezidi kuwa mengi na kuchacha kwa uchaguzi uliofanyika, kwa wakisema ya kwamba yeye hakustahiki hicho kiti na hakuweza kupita. Na ni kwa nini kwamba waseme ya kwamba Museveni hakuweza kupita kwa uchaguzi huo? Ni kwa sababu mambo yaliyozidi kutokea nchini Uganda. Tunaona ya kwamba Bobi Wine alitiwa mbaroni na watu wengi, hata wakaweza kuumia na kuweza kuaga dunia, na hicho ndicho kilisababisha hata watu ama nchi jirani zianze kuingilia kama nchi ya USA, kwa maana tuliona hata Donald Trump akizungumza na akisema ya kwamba hicho kiti kwa hakika hakustahiki kukipata sio mwingine bali ni Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, na hicho kiti kilistahiki kupewa yule ambaye alikuwa ni Bobi Wine, kwa maana yeye ndiyo aliyeweza kupita. Na tumeona sio Donald Trump tu peke yake, bali hata anayekuwa the youngest president in Africa ambaye ni Ibrahim Traore, na amesent warning, a big warning to the country of Uganda, saying that Museveni quit the chair or else something will happen in Uganda, because nowadays we are living in a country of democracy, and yet we have a right, and if you lose, don't rig election, because according to the election it seems like Museveni rigged that election, and that's why he announced himself that he is a winner. And Museveni being a winner, this is the 7th times leading the Uganda since 1980 something there. Museveni ndiye amekuwa kiongozi pale hadi wa sasa, na hizo ni miaka takriban miaka 43 since 1983-84 hapo mpaka sasa. Museveni ndiye amekuwa kiongozi ambaye kwa hakika ni kiongozi ambaye anaongoza nchi ya Uganda kwa mabavu na kwa fujo, kwa maana cabinet yote na watu wakuu ama viti zote za uongozi wa juu ameweza kuteua ambayo ni familia yake. So kumngatua mahali pale kwa hakika nasema ya kwamba ni kitu ambacho hakiwezekani, kwa maana tukiangalia kiongozi wa usalama ama the leader of army ni mtoto wake ambaye ni kijana yake, na ukiangalia si huyo tu peke yake bali mke wake pia amempa kiti cha juu, na familia kwa jumla ameweza kuwateulia viti vya juu, na ndipo unaona ya kwamba yeye hata kung'oka mali pale kwa hakika ni kitu ambacho hakiwezekani. So Ibrahim Traore kwa hakika ametuma warning kubwa. Je, maoni ya Ibrahim Traore yataweza kusaidia nchi ya Uganda? Na si si Ibrahim Traore tu peke yake, bali hata Donald Trump, kiongozi wa nchi ya Marekani, pia atoa warning akisema ya kwamba Africans, hakuna uchaguzi ambao unaweza fanyika kwa usalama, ama ni mambo yapi ambayo yanaweza kuendelea. Nikiongelea tu Afrika, kwa hakika nchi tofauti ambazo zimekuwa na uchaguzi hivi karibuni, unapoangalia mambo yanazidi kuchacha na mambo yanazidi kujitokeza, ambayo kwa hakika naweza sema kwamba sio mazuri mno, kwa sababu watu wanafanya vitu kwa kifua na hata kusema ya kwamba mimi ni kiongozi na kuna mtu ambaye anaweza kuningatua kwenye uongozi. Na kumbuka kwamba wanasema no one is above the law, but how comes usemea kwamba no one can remove me, ama na hakuna mtu ambaye weza kunitoa kwenye hichi kiti, kwa maana mimi nimeweza kufuzu kuwa rais ama kuwa kiongozi wa taifa lolote lile. So Museveni kiti chake kimotoni, na sijui kama mambo yatazidi kuwa mazuri, kwa maana hata kule Uganda mambo yanazidi kuchafuka na mambo yanazidi usalama unazidi kutokuwepo, kwa maana mambo yanazidi kuwa mabaya zaidi. So ni lipi hasa litaweza kufanyika ili nchi ya Uganda iweze kupona, kwa sababu wamekatana katakata na huo uongozi ama huo ushindi ambao Yoweri Kaguta Museveni aliweza kushinda. Na kama ni mara yako ya kwanza kwa hakika kutazama hii video, nasema tu kwa roho ya upole na ya unyenyekevu kwamba weza kunisupport kwa kusubscribe, kulike na kushare kwa hii video, kisha tuweze kuendelea kupata uchambuzi si Kenya ama si taifa la Uganda peke yake, bali barani Afrika, na hivyo itakuwa msaada mkubwa mno kwa kuweza kunisupport. Shukrani kwa kusimama nami, shukrani kwa kutazama hii video. Popote ulipo, Mungu wacha na kakutende mema hadi wakati mwingine tutakapokutana kwenye video inayofuata. Shukrani, weza kubarikiwa.